Hello, 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 and welcome to the Poet Podcast. I'm your host, Dale Novella of Royalty Entertainment Company, aka The Rec Life. And we're going to have some fun today. Hey.
Ow.
So we have a very large panel today, and I'm really excited to talk to a couple of our guests about, all the things that we're doing. So our first special guest is Miss Katie Rainey.
Hey.
And I feel like I just said your name weird.
It sounded like I say it.
Okay.
Katie Rainey.
I feel like I just said Caney, and that's weird.
Caney? I could do that.
Caney? That could be your new nickname? I remember one time I decided you should have a stripper name, and it should be Dusty Rose. So you were wearing a Dusty Rose dress that one day.
A lot of people call me K-Train.
K-Train.
That's happened before, so like K-T
That sounds a little dirtier than Dirty
yeah.
Rose.
Well, there
Dusty.
you go.
I mean, just get down to it. Just get down to it.
Dirty Rose is like my burlesque name.
Okay.
Like it's a little classier. K-Train's probably like my stripper name.
Okay, the stripper name,
Yeah.
and you get to see everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full nudes.
Noted.
Already there.
Well, Katie is an amazing teaching artist and administrator and
don't let
social
my kids
justice
hear this.
warrior. Yeah. Some of them might appreciate it. High school students are. But also an editor for Dead Rabbits. And you have two podcasts. You don't host the Dead Rabbits podcast, but you do host a very special podcast that's built around wine.
Mm-hmm. That's
Ooh.
yeah.
Wait, tell us more. Tell us more.
Tell us about
like
this
that.
wine drink.
Yeah, please.
Well, we like to pretend like we're wine experts on it. It's called Rosé All Day anyways. And it's with my co-host, Erica Atkins, who's another teaching artist, arts educator. But it's more like just a feminist podcast. But yeah, we pretend like we know a lot of things about rosé, which as much as I've learned, it's probably just that most rosé was made in 2017. That's what I've learned.
Wow. Okay, then.
So the question is rosé present on the podcast, and is it
yeah.
consumed?
Oh,
Oh, then
yes.
you're good. You're fine.
In mass quantities.
If you ever need any type of guest,
Oh, y'all are coming on.
experts in something, I can become one for the podcast. Just let me know.
Sometimes we put whiskey in our rosé, though.
Oh,
Was-
that
yeah.
sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, when we do the Dead Rabbits podcast, maybe we'll have to do a double header when you guys come.
We will
Come
bring the
on.
rosé. We will bring a bottle just
Yeah.
for y'all.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's like her favorite drink aside from like Prosecco.
Prosecco?
Prosecco.
All the stuff
Got
that
it.
break wraps up. My microphone's acting up. Sorry.
Okay. There was one more question I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
You're also the leader of
Yeah.
the Dead Rabbits crew.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the co-founders.
One of the
and
co-founders.
I'm
She
the
is.
editor in chief
Lead editor in chief. Yes.
with my partner here, Brian Birnbaum.
I'm learning a lot about Katie that I did not know before this just started.
You didn't know she was Dirty Rose.
no idea. And I always wondered why she whispered Caney Rainey.
Hey, it just turned into
In her
Dirty
sleep.
Rose from Dusty Rose.
It did.
You
I'm
just
sorry.
transformed it. I like it. It's just
It's
it's going
2019,
downhill.
man.
Yeah. Now you have to trademark it.
For real, trademark your stuff though. No, that's so serious.
Yeah.
Please. Anyway, that's another story.
Anywho, Brian.
Hi.
You are having a very exciting year. You're an author. You are also a Dead Rabbits partner. So you have not only your podcast going on, but you have the reading series. And you are putting out a book this year.
I am.
Emerald City.
Yes, I am. Thank
Yeah.
you. I wish I could sing an introduction like you could. That's like my dream.
We'll
but,
have to get Dale to make the Emerald City jingle.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you know.
You need to hear the Rosé All Day jingle.
Okay. I think the last
You'll
time I
kill it.
listened to it, there wasn't a jingle. Or maybe I just didn't hear the jingle. Is
Oh
there
yeah,
another
maybe
jingle?
Erica sings it. There's a catchy jingle.
Okay. Cool. I'm looking forward to it.
And whiskey and rosé. This is.
Yeah. It's
I don't know
good.
whether to be
It's good
offended
stuff.
or like excited.
You should be
Both.
Do
excited.
both.
You
Yeah,
should be
both. Do
excited.
both.
All right.
I think
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It would be better if it was probably like moonshine and rosé,
We can do
Okay.
that.
because then you can pretend to be classy.
Yeah.
You know,
But,
but
why,
you're really
why
just
pretend?
What? Yeah.
like, it's fun.
I like to pretend.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the 20s, so moonshine's cool with me. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not drinking it out of teacups, but you know,
Yeah, I'm just gonna be
Mhm.
like, I'm just go, just keep it raw.
I
That's
like
fancy.
anything in a
Keep
fancy
some
glass.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Mm.
But Brian, can you tell us a little bit about your book that's coming out?
Sure. Yeah. How about the short elevator pitch so I don't bore everyone to death?
That's fine. It doesn't sound like a boring book. Sounds like it's just jam-packed with action.
Yeah.
I've been told it sounds fun, which is encouraging because I worked on it for 6 years. But yeah, it's about there's this college basketball player. I got this fictional college set in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
His parents are deaf. My parents are deaf, so I take a little. There's a lot of stuff in the book that's from my experience. But his dad owns an interpreting company, sign language interpreting company, like my dad. But his dad is running video relay service fraud, which is like an interpretation service for the deaf for phones. They got monitors set up, and you sign, and then the operator's got the headset on, and they translate on the phone. You know.
Okay.
And basically, it's subsidized by the government, and us taxpayers pay for it. But he's running minutes and racking up the bills, and it's tied to organized crime, and that's what draws in the other two main characters, which are also like college age kids that are kind of like wrapped up in this too. Julia and Peter are their names.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
See, that sounds riveting to me.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Also,
Thank you.
the cover of the book is dope. Who did the artwork?
Yeah.
Another one of our teaching artists. Wait, hold it back up. I gotta take a picture. There we go. Another one of our teaching artists, Sean Sean, works for Community Word Project, where we work.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We were it was my first time ever at the New York City Library. Surprisingly, as
Like
a
the
writer.
main one with
Yeah,
the
the main
lions?
one at
Oh.
Bryant Park.
Yeah.
and
The one with the
everything.
lions?
Yeah.
The one that you can't actually check anything out of.
But-
So Carrie Bradshaw lied to all of
But
us.
there's a
Sheesh.
there's a literal library. Well,
She does that.
there used to be a library across the street. I don't know if that's
There's
still
still
there.
one, yeah, but it's really small. You don't notice it.
I know
'cause
it's not that small. It's like floors of books.
There's but
It's not as big
on
as-
the outside.
It's
There's
huge.
no pomp
Yeah.
and circumstance.
But no, there's the big one, and then across the street is like a regular library.
I see.
Yeah.
That's like floors.
Yeah,
of
we went in the big one.
Yeah.
That's where I met with him, and like, I just thought of like this on the spot, and he just starts sketching it, and I'm like, that's it. And it took us like 15 minutes. I was like,
Yeah.
dope, man. All right, good to meet you.
Yeah,
Just like
He's
that.
a really,
really nice
he's a great guy. He's working on the illustrations for a children's book that we're working on too. So yeah, he's awesome.
Well, thank y'all both for coming on the show.
No,
yeah,
thank you.
thanks for having us.
Yeah.
The next, the infamous
Where's the drums?
world traveler.
We need drums. Where's drums?
I can drum roll.
Get a drum roll. There we go.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
International hip hop superstar and educator. Also a social justice warrior. We're all about, change, affecting change in the state.
He's got a new title, and you better not leave it out.
Oh.
Hey, don't steal the thunder, bro.
I have to
Steal
listen
the
to
thunder,
you.
man.
We haven't heard it, so I'm excited.
And also my newly minted husband.
Put a ring on it, fellas. Put a ring on it.
McCalamine, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Cool.
You need
Doing well.
You need
So
Jamaican horns.
Other than finally tying the knot after planning this thing for like 2 years.
Too long.
You dropped something else right before our wedding. What'd you do?
I did. My latest release is The Passport. Released it a little bit in May, but really kind of went full bore this last month. So basically, this album I've been working on the last 3.5, 4 years. No, more like 5. More like 5 years.
Why has it taken you so long to record this album?
Well,
Because there's a special premise. It's a concept album, right?
Yeah. So basically, I've been touring mostly Europe, Africa, South America for the last 10 or 11 years. And, on some of my longer trips, I end up, working with the artists in those countries. So The Passport basically is the second installment of some recordings I've been doing since about 2015. And I finalized the last couple because Miss Dale Novella is featured on 2 of the tracks.
Yeah.
On our last world tour to Hungary and Germany. So that just got released. I'm really excited about that. Also, a DJ, shout out to my man Cole Cut in Bremen, Germany. He actually just did a master mix of my records from the last 2 years called The Boarding Pass. So you can get both of those on Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Spotify, everywhere things are streaming. Been working on that. And I'm actually going to be the guest on Equilibrium Radio, Harlem City College Radio, 90.3 tomorrow night.
So
Wow.
So, yeah, a lot of things going on. And hopefully...
What's the name of the brother that does that again?
As Priest Forever and John
right.
O and Kwame Veer and D Nasty,
Shout-
our homie
D.
D
Nasty,
Nasty.
Right.
yeah.
Shout out to all of them.
Also, so I'm gonna see D Nasty.
And Stephanie LaRock.
Mm-hmm.
There's a girl in the mix.
And also Chris Breezy. Shout out to Chris Breezy, the whole crew.
The OG.
Yes. So yeah, I'll be in the house. Friends of the program, and waiting to hear back. I just submitted for possibly being in a hip hop anthology, so hopefully hear back about that. And what else am I doing? Oh, and I'm teaching some young autistic students at COVID Care in upstate New York. So the other thing that I do as an artist educator is I work with young people all over the world. And this summer, there's a great group of kids. Voices Will Carry is the name of their podcast. And I'm there helping them create music around their experiences and also to help them with the podcast. And we're going to do a little show in September. So I'm really excited about that. And I'll go back there in like 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And
Yeah.
have a major full-time job on top of all of this.
And a major hi, Bam. How you guys doing? I'll be back.
No big deal.
No, yeah. And then also, of course, I have this wonderful woman that I'm,
And a cat.
and a cat.
Takes
Shout
up
out to
all of our
Silence.
It's a
time.
whole other full-time job.
Congrats
Yeah.
to weddings.
Yes,
Snaps.
yes.
And last and least, no.
Ah, yay.
I like to
Actually,
to
not
play-
last.
Let's. You're right.
Oh well, one of
You
y'all
always
can do
do
that.
this.
The last person that I'm introducing is Mr. Baxter Wordsworth. Baxter P. Wordsworth. I never asked you what does the P
Fantastic.
stand for. It doesn't stand for fantastic.
Yes, it does.
Baxter Fantastic Wordsworth.
Yep, that's me.
So it's with a PH.
All right, no, just a P. It stands for fantastic. It doesn't spell anything though.
It's like Xavier, like it's
Got it.
It's got that,
Yeah, there's a silent.
You
yeah.
get it.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
got it.
it's not a word. It's just the letter P, but it stands for fantastic.
Got it.
You know. Hey, how are you? Oh, is this where I start talking? Hey, I'm Baxter.
What's up? So I didn't finish introducing you.
That-
Fantastic.
that's what I was waiting
Baxter
for.
Fantastic. I feel like I'm just going to call you that.
Baxter
from now on.
Fantastic. That sounds like a superhero or cartoon something.
No, it sounds like an old guard like robber baron name, like
Hey.
like North Shore, Long Island, 1920s,
Carpetbagger.
man.
Baxter Fantastic.
The 20s. The
Yeah.
20s is a reincarnating theme.
Yeah.
I keep
We
bringing
should
it
have had
up.
moonshine.
Sorry.
Right.
And
We
teacups.
should have had moonshine.
But you are the host to go to in New York for all your hip hop event needs.
I like to think I'm number 3, but I'll take
You're
that.
number 3?
Yeah.
I don't know the other
I don't know the
people.
other two.
Yeah. Well, in my shout out to Ill Spoken and shout out to Phase 1, the World Wonder.
Oh,
I
true.
put them-
Well,
You're
Phase
right,
One
you're
Those,
right.
those are the hosts that I look up to.
You're right. You're
But
right.
he has one event.
He hosted the hell out of it for every week for
but it was
years,
still one.
and never dropped in energy or momentum. It's
And
not an easy
Ill-Spoken
thing.
don't live here anymore.
Ill-Spoken,
and
first of
I'm
all,
going to talk shit.
Ill-Spoken
because
Love
this
you,
is my
Ill.
wedding.
Love you,
Ill-Spoken
yeah,
lives-
love you.
Love you.
Ill-Spoken lives everywhere, especially in our hearts.
Very
Yes, he
smooth,
does.
very humble, Mr. Baxter Fantastic. Very smooth. Very smooth.
But what do you have
About to
going
get murked
on?
out here.
What, tell us about your events.
In
and
the
your
world
life and
in the
all
world of
those
hosting things, I am hosting end of the week. We are wrapping up our 2019 season. Coming up on July 21st, we have the Wild Card MC Challenge. MC Challenge being a competition we put together. It's fantastic. Google it. And the wild card is the second place winners of all the challenges we have this season get together for a second chance to get into the Challenger Champions. We got D Nasty, we got Randy Mason, we got King Triple, and we have I'm missing one more person.
Is it only 4? You only named
It's
3
only
people.
4. It's only yeah. This time it's only 4.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to feel like an ass if I don't remember the 4th person. I'll come back around. But it's all the second place people. It's going to be really, really, really dope. I get to host that. We're also going back to an old venue we used to rock at years and years and years ago.
Pyramid
So,
Club?
yep. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
going to, So it's going to be an amazing night. On top of that, the Poet will be televised. It's on hiatus.
Yeah.
But while they're on
win.
hiatus, Jade Zabrick and Adrian A.D. have put together an event called the Train Walkers Open Mic. I attended that last Wednesday, and that was amazing. That's going down at Sylvana's every second Wednesday until the Poet will be televised comes back. So I'm enjoying the hiatus. I'm also working on some music and some other things. Nothing to report on those forecast
I
yet.
do have
Exclusive.
an idea about this. So,
Huh?
like the way the city girls like made period a thing. We were already saying period,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But they really made it a thing, especially with the T at the end.
Right.
You should
Right.
make that fantastic. You should just be like, after you say anything, just be like fantastic.
I don't know if I have the ambition for that endeavor, but I'll keep it in the possibilities.
Fine.
This is
Yeah.
how I know I'm getting old too. So really quick, all of my students this past spring kept saying period after everything, and I did not get it. And finally, when I talked to you and I found out, I'm like, that's what that's
But
from.
they don't pronounce.
all said period.
Period.
Point blank.
I feel like
period.
that's
And I
been
was
a thing
like,
for a really long time, though.
It has, but like with like
They, like,
if you're
emphasize
like 25
it and,
or
like, it's
younger,
weird.
you
Yeah.
don't say it as much.
Yeah, they
So,
said
like,
for
this one rap group-
everything.
But they
this
don't
one
pronounce
rap
the T?
group, no, they say period.
Oh, period.
But they're like from Miami, so it just like it sounds different.
Right.
when
Right.
you
Yeah.
say it.
Right.
Oh, I did not know period was a thing.
Yeah, period. Like you just like it's just an over
It's
pronunciation
an accent.
of the word.
It's an
Right.
accent.
Yeah,
Like-
sounds like a I don't know.
Yeah.
South Beach thing
Yeah.
going on.
But
Right.
literally after
South Beach
everything my kids said was they're like period, and I'm like, okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this today. Period. I'm like, right, okay.
Yeah. 'Cause
Sure.
To you, it wasn't. It was just like, yeah, I've been.
I
heard
knew it
that,
was
but
some
yeah.
type of slang. I just didn't know where it was from. And
Yeah.
I caught that part, but I was like, I'm definitely getting like my pops, man. My pops was a teacher. I'm like, I don't understand where this is coming from. Which I
Yo,
just
speaking
rock
of-
with it and roll
Speaking
with
of not understanding, what does no cap mean? I've been hesitating to ask that.
Oh.
But like I see all the kids say that. They're like, yo, no cap, no cap.
I haven't even heard
cap.
that one, but I recently found out what a skinny legend was, and I was like,
A
that's
skinny
what.
legend. That's not a type of spider.
No,
Oh.
it's just like if you're a stan, you stan a skinny legend.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, because
So, like,
Slim-
Yeah, if you're a stan,
because Slim
like,
Shady
'cause-
was skinny.
Oh, like a super
No.
fan stan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
But-
like
So
like
if
the
you're
Eminem
a super
song.
fan, like
Yeah.
the Eminem song. So
Yeah.
if you're a super fan, whoever you're like a fan of, that's your skinny legend.
Well, why they got to be skinny though?
I don't know.
What if you're stand for Biggie?
Apparently,
Yeah.
it started with like
Yeah, thank
it started
you.
with like
Thank you
or
for
Mariah
or
that.
Carey,
pun.
and we know
What,
she
yeah, what if
goes
you
up and
what if you
down,
stand
so-
puns?
So somebody called
Fat
themselves a
Joe.
skinny legend.
Right.
Someone called Mariah Carey a skinny legend.
Okay.
And
Was it Mariah?
Mariah Carey is not skinny. Like she's like curvy. She's always
Okay,
been curvy, even
we
when
need
she
to do
was
more
on-
research on this. We're gonna get back on that. I want
Yeah,
to
'cause
research
if
this.
there's any kids
We can
listening,
get closer and
call in.
closer to the truth, but right now we're gonna listen to "Closer" by
Actually,
Awate.
no, we're not.
Whoa.
Yes,
No, we're not.
What?
Oh, first
Let's-
marital
she,
argument.
She tried to get by it. I saw that.
Thank you, Katie. Katie's a friend of the program, knows how this works.
Should we go?
Thank you, Katie, because
Go
really
for it.
quick,
Go for it.
the woman, the myth, the legend,
Mm-hmm.
dropper of all types of marital vow bars,
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable.
Black Girl Magic.
Black Girl Magic.
Which is my single and it's on iTunes.
Yes. Super international soul singer of force
Mhm,
and
mhm.
nature.
Producer,
Producer,
songwriter,
musician, photographer, videographer,
woman of many styles.
whatever you want and need she can. Educator, whatever you want and need she can do. Miss Del Novella, what is going on with you this week?
Oh my! This week I just got back from.
I don't know. This is all Halloween stuff. I did discuss. That was the best. That was the best thing.
This week I just got back from Myrtle Beach with my husband.
Ow.
And you're about to get on another trip.
Period.
Oh yeah, I'm going this weekend. I'm going to Washington D.C. I have 2 So Far Sound shows. I'm really excited about that because I always invite my family out. It's getting shows in D.C. is just an excuse to see my family. So,
Say what up to my family.
Yeah,
My parents live there.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, what part? I'm going to Northwest. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
right just outside of Northwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Technically Maryland, but no
Yeah.
one knows what that means. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll be there this weekend, and then after that, I actually have a short set at the New York City Poetry Festival on Governor's Island.
Oh, sweet.
Working on new music.
I am working on new music and revamping old music, so I'm trying to get in because I mix my own music, but it doesn't sound as professional as I like it. So I always like record and mix at home, and then I take it to the studio. So I'm trying to get in the studio to make sure everything's right. Yeah, and I'm trying to push myself to actually like really play my instruments, and I'm teaching yoga.
That's right.
Yeah.
You are teaching yoga.
At BK Yoga Club in Dumbo. And also at Shambhala, every once in a while at Shambhala. which is owned by my friend Deanna, who also works
Yeah.
with us. Yeah.
I was going to ask if that's where you were going.
Yeah.
You have weekly classes there?
Not at Shambhala, but at BK Yoga Club I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
What days?
On Tuesdays.
Mm.
at
What
12.
time?
So we can all, as a group, come do yoga with you?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Tuesdays at noon. And I try to play like soul and funk and R&B.
And trap. No, not trap.
I actually haven't played a whole lot of trap yet.
You got to play that old school South hip hop.
Like T.I. stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
Like Gucci Mane.
UGK.
Little Outcast.
Maybe a little bit of UGK. Or maybe some like Ghetto Boys.
This is very
Maybe a little
all.
bit.
This is all very odd for yoga for me.
Yeah, it is.
Dungeon
but like
Family.
I put on
that's-
like Thievery Corporation or something. You know.
Yeah, you know, the more I listen to the music that I really like when I'm doing my own practice, the more annoying, like hearing the chanting and stuff
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
go to yoga studios is. Like, I'm
Uh-huh.
just like, we actually don't have to listen to this in Sanskrit. Like, we can, like, just listen to some gospel harmonies, you know?
Mhm.
Because, like, the harmonies, the frequencies is what's getting to you and, like, opening you up. So it's not what they're saying. They're chanting for like Hindu gods. So if you're in a room of people who don't know anything about Hinduism and don't like recognize that in their relationship to yoga, then it's like pointless to play it, kind of.
Right.
You just need something that has those frequencies.
Ba-da-ma-bam-bam,
Yeah, and that gets in your soul. I played during Savasana. I played Purple Rain.
Classic.
I think it.
Did,
Yeah,
did anybody
I think it
cry?
helped.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. I
Cry
feel
or
like
clap?
Cry.
Cry. You know, when I was going through my flow myself, and it came on, I was like,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's just me.
Sorry. It's in my head now.
Dun, dun.
But yes, let's get into our first video from Awate and Closer. Closer.
I wanna lay by your side, get lost in your eyes, and love you even more. Admire with your smile as we're getting closer, and kiss this mountain that I go right to you.
So that was Awate with Closer, and I believe it's from our March The Poet Will Be Televised.
Okay.
And the song is really about a lover yearning for, or a woman yearning for her lover. But it when I was listening to it, I was thinking about just our ideal views of the world and how close they are to us and how we yearn for those ideals. And I mean, for this song, it was specifically the ideal of a lover. But like, I have an idea of the world that I don't know if it's ever going to like manifest, and that's kind of like a world where, to be honest, with no real hierarchies, right? There's no like isms, and there's no money. We kind of just barter for things, or we have more equality that way, or equity.
Right.
I don't think that's ever going to happen because humans like power for the most part.
Agreed.
I don't know if it never happened. I'm optimistic and idealistic to a fault.
But what about y'all? Are we close to any of your ideals of society, for society?
I love that question.
Mm-hmm.
No.
The binary comes out finally. like,
Yeah.
period.
Hard
The
no.
absolute.
Period.
I mean, it's true. I think the human condition is just we're greedy. I don't, and like people like to talk about like capitalism or socialism, this and that, but I think it's really just people, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and it's inside all of us, even the good ones.
But I disagree. I think people like, you know, it's like a canvas. Like what's get painted is kind of what gets shown, right? Because one, I'll say, I always feel like we're moving in the direction of equality, right? Like maybe not as fast as we should be, and maybe not always going forward, but like the world is a fairer, more, I guess, just place today than it was like hundreds of years ago.
More
right?
peaceful too.
Right. You know, so like I think that's the direction that collectively we want to head in. And two, I always have the belief is like it's about the love that you get shown or displayed. And I think people with children, like when you're young, if you get like an accurate kind of like nurturing amount of love, then you are more capable of like kind of giving that. But I think a lot of people who don't get the love they want become selfish because they feel like they have to go out there and like grab it themselves, you know. They're not satisfied with their lives. They're not satisfied. They want to own people. They want to own land. They want to own money. They want to own like situations, conversations, and things like that. And like they just like take because they feel like they've never been given anything or something like that. But, you know.
You really are an eternal optimist, idealist. That's amazing.
Maybe.
Yeah, I hate this. As an educator, I really hate to admit this, but I feel a lot like Brian, and it's over time that I felt this way, and a lot of it
Makes
is.
sense.
Do I get a point?
You get a glass of rosé, sir. We'll get that to you shortly. We'll get that to you shortly.
Look out for it in the mail.
Yeah. You get an option: whiskey or rosé. You can mix them if you want.
All right.
But yeah, it's funny because I mean, historically speaking, to a certain degree, you're right. Like, we've improved in medicine, we've improved in terms of war to a certain degree. But I also feel like, and it's the most tired reference ever, but I'm gonna use it. I really do feel like the world is like the Matrix in the sense that power always adapts itself. These hierarchies adapt itself. So even though you may not necessarily have, people in an open battlefield hacking at each other with machetes, or you don't necessarily have kings and queens anymore, the same kind of structures and the same type of violence just enacted in new and different ways. And the human existence sadly feels as if it just finds new ways to kind of enact that type of violence and that type of oppression. It just looks a little different, and maybe it's more humane, but it kind of maintains the same type of imbalance. And it's tough for me because one of the reasons why I became an educator is because I did want to contribute to this ideal. My thought process had always been to what you were saying, that let's create places and spaces where love can happen, where appreciation can happen, where people have an opportunity to feel heard, feel listened to, feel loved, feel cared about, in a place that they can kind of like bring their energy and it be acknowledged and accepted. And now my microphone cut out. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
No, we can hear
I
you.
can hear
It's
you.
I
it's
just
probably
can't
your
hear me.
headphones. Yeah.
Okay. So that was a major driving force for me to be an educator. And I do see that with young people, and I do see that in certain spaces. But I think as I've gotten older, I think that what's difficult for me to hold on to is the reality. Like when I step outside of these bubbles, when I step outside of these small micro spaces, the world doesn't really feel that much more like it's going in a direction that I'm thinking of, because everything that Dale said is exactly what I want. You know, no isms, just no vertical structures at all. People just basically like willing to kind of like collaborate and commune together. Equally, people are allowed to express themselves and be who they are, whatever they are, however they want to be.
As long as they're not hurting other
Right,
people.
right,
You know?
right,
Like
yeah.
if you want to be a pedophile, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're not
You're
doing
gonna
that.
be
Yeah, we're
put
not.
on an
That's a
island.
different thing.
Or just thrown into the ocean.
Yeah,
Or
you know,
under an
and without
island.
judgment and all of those things. And even as we've advanced and we've evolved in our intelligence and all of these other ways, we still find ways to oppress each other, to divide each other. And like I said, once you kind of step outside of these sort of microspaces, it just feels like almost as if like you can't hold on to that. And it's been tough because these are things that I've just been coming into a realization in the last like maybe 2 or 3 years. And I'm to be honest with you, I'm trying to find my eternal optimist idealist, because that's definitely how I don't think you can be an educator and not be that. Like that's the
Yeah.
whole point.
We need people. Like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or else we're seriously in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like educators have this like dual paradox going on where you do want to be internally like optimistic and you have these ideals, but at the same time you're down in those micro spaces and you see day to day like what like say your students are going through and stuff. It
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
like the world is garbage. I mean, I've known so many teachers who have come home and had to drink to fall asleep because of what they experience with their students and what their students are going through. To me, honestly, it feels like almost the opposite, where like in the micro spaces, it's easy to get like bogged down by the nitty gritty and day to day of like humans picking each other apart. But then if you actually step back and see like over history, what we've this like broader view, like yes, we actually have like over time we're in the most peaceful time that humans have ever lived
Yeah.
in. But then at the same time, I hear what you're saying. There's like digital warfare going on. There's the dark web alone is like
Right.
I mean,
You know?
suicide.
We watched
Yeah.
Queen of the South.
Yeah.
And they sell all their coke on the dark web.
Queen of the South.
Yeah.
Is that a
It's a
TV show?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The show we watch.
Oh yeah, you can
Is
get
it a
you can get
documentary?
anything on the dark web.
Oh yeah.
No,
If you got
it's-
that Bitcoin.
it's based on
Right.
it's based on a telenovela that's based on a novel that's based on a real person who
Whoa.
I think just went to jail.
Oh whoa, we
but
gotta
it-
check this out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
did-
she was like a Colombian drug lord.
What are you
and-
watching this on?
We're watching on Netflix. You can stream the first 3 seasons
Queen
on
of the
Netflix,
South?
and then the 4th season is on TV right now.
This
on
is an
USA.
ad for Queen of the South.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
basically.
Honestly, it's literally the only thing that I can personally binge watch anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's hard for
Yeah.
me to binge watch stuff, but I
Yeah.
will sit with her in the bed. We'll just sit there for like 6 hours, getting
And
no
watch
sleep.
Queen of
Like,
the South,
yo, there's this one character named we nicknamed him the Fairy God Assassin because he's got like, I mean, he's like, so they're Mexican and he's like a total badass. But he just be
Yeah.
dropping gems and these like profound truths. And every time she's like
Yeah.
trying to figure out what to do, he just pops up.
He's like,
He's a
"Terracita."
master chef.
Yeah.
So you see him. He's got like these pearl handle like 45s, and he's like cutting up cilantro in the kitchen, like chefing hard. And he's
Yeah.
like, "So Teresa, you must do this because the sun rests on this." And then he's like popping caps. And I'm like,
Yeah.
he's the dopest character on there aside from Teresa. Like everybody on this show is ridiculously dope. Even the villains are
We
like,
gotta check this
"You're
show
cool
out."
as fuck." Yeah, it's a great show.
But
When
they
it
sell
first-
coke on the dark web.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
sell
Oh,
coke
yeah.
on the dark web,
They
and they
sell
get
everything.
paid in Bitcoin.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and she carries her money around in a hard drive.
Yeah.
Have you
Like-
guys seen Euphoria at all yet?
I've
haven't.
heard about it.
Yeah, I
It's
was
pretty.
just
It's pretty hard to watch.
It's
I'm
good.
not gonna
It's very
lie.
good.
Like
Yeah.
it's hard for me. Just I don't know. Something about kids and
And
when
drugs.
Do you
Yeah,
know-
I can't watch a whole
do you
lot
know
with,
who
like, hard
writes that?
drugs, like people who watching.
I actually just
Drake,
found out that
right?
Drake and Future produced it. I had
Oh,
no
yeah.
idea.
all
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
episodes are named after hip hop songs, and like it
Oh,
doesn't
that makes sense.
it doesn't
yeah.
seem to be like hip hop. I guess focused or whatever. So I
Yeah.
just thought that was interesting. I wanted to kind of figure out who was behind that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
word.
in the burbs. I think, like
Right.
mainly, but yeah, I was really surprised that Drake and Future produced that.
Well, Drake is from the burbs.
That's
There's-
true.
But there's a character.
Notoriously,
Yeah.
and
notoriously.
Future's ahead of his time. so-
As
No,
Pusha T informs us on practically every track, Drake is from the burbs.
There's a character on the show that like basically is providing certain sexual services and using Bitcoin to receive from her. And as a student, it's
well, more
yeah.
more like webcasting, not
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
direct
No.
contact. You know,
But
what I
you
mean?
can see
yeah.
it's taking an insidious track, and like
Yeah.
where they're probably going to go with it is a little scary. So, but anyway, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, well, so let's go to the
Yeah,
next video, which is actually titled How Have You Ever? And Never Have I Ever, from Susie Wu.
You cry. Have you ever needed something so bad you can't sleep at night? Have you ever tried to find the words but they don't come out right? Have you ever? Have you ever? Have you ever? My answer is yes to every one of those questions. I've loved you so much to a standstill with myself and said, fuck all discretion. I don't want to learn a lesson. I don't care what the standard for affection is. You are the body I invest my soul in, even at the price of losing my mind. At the end of the day, despite the things I too often said, I'm yours. Even if I decline, walk away. Chills up that spine, that ass is mine. See, chills up that spine, that ass is mine. See, I will push forward, even if the climb is hard. Nothing is easy. Fuck me, but you think that you need me. I said too many times, go ahead. Leave me, yet you stay. Well, okay. Put up my bitch and hip hip hooray. Slurring on my drink. Express what I think about the whole of the week that somebody linked to me. Let's pray I don't get fed up. R. Kelly on repeat, but he's not. My self-esteem wants to get up. Who gets it better? Who got it better? My nigga, shut up. See, I chose you. Empty promises result in an empty threat. Waving around an index finger, pointing out shit that you forget. Who gave you a cab so you wouldn't get jumped? Who gave you $20 just so you could get lunch? Who helped you get what you want? Make sure you have what you need. Always going out my way so your leash ass could feed. Who put you under that J code? Helped your ass get on payroll. Don't insult me with the reason you breathe, my nigga. I'm the does all be all. Who traveled thousands of miles so a dream didn't just live in your head? Who molded themselves to an outline the devil likes little twins bad? Damn. That was hard. We was close, but we was too close. Intensity of the twilight gave up my whole life to see the light reflect your brown eyes to all burn. Just to roll over next to my someone, my somebody. In a room full of nobodies, I mean, you took up the space. See, I wasn't ready yet, but I wanted to catch a bouquet because that was real love. I fuck up, you fuck up, we both recognize our hypocrisy and still don't give a fuck. How do we luck up? Two sinners with a hard path to see. He praised the 7 days, so we broke up in 7 ways. I love you. I hate your ass. I can't live without you. Go fuck her. You love her, right? Well, let's be friends. See, I still think about you, but it's over. I often reserve my emotion, but you see, with you, I lose all composure. Forgive me, my love. He's cute, but you're the one I've been thinking of. He got the juice, but you're the one I share my sex with. See, forever isn't in the distance, it's in the midst. It's in every time you hold your breath. When I say you ain't shit, it's in the gaps of time between us. When I think this thing is finally over, it's when you playing GTA 5 and you let me hold the controller. Hold up. It's when you playing GTA 5 and you let me hold the controller. It's in his kiss. Ignorance is bliss, but not knowing for the curious still fucks with you. Even when I did know, I still fuck with you. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I never wanted the hugs divorced. Never can say goodbye. No, 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 no. Never can say goodbye. Even though we thought we had enough, it's not all gonna work out. There's that same old empty feeling. There's that anger, there's that doubt. Then you'll try to say that you're leaving me, but I always have to say no. Tell me why. Is it time? Hey, all right. I don't know if that's my time yet, but y'all think it's my time. I didn't look up my bad.
All right, that was Susie Wu with Have You Ever. Now, she says an interesting line. The line is, empty promises end in empty threats. And this was another song about just kind of a jacked up love story, not really unrequited love, but it got me thinking about that particular line. Got me thinking about what's going on in our political scene these days, with like 25 people running for like the Democratic seat. And what I was thinking is, like, these people are making empty promises? Recently, Kamala Harris got a lot of flack about that, and backtracking on some of the things that she did when she was in San Francisco. She was a lawyer. People were bringing up the fact that she was dating a politician. She was dating the mayor of San Francisco at one point in time. But is there anyone standing out that you think they are making real promises? Are there any third-party candidates that you are hearing about that are popping up?
That's a loaded question.
That's huge.
It is. Not at this stage, but I'm not surprised because we're not even in the primary yet. So everybody's just
true.
going to say what they're going to say.
Is anybody excited about anybody?
Nope.
No.
At first I was excited about Kamala, and it's for like artificial reasons, like she's my soror,
Yeah.
and it's just like the idea of having like an actual soror as the president, because like Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama is honorary soror, Eleanor Roosevelt has been honorary soror, so it's like, one of my sorors, but it's like. That's really superficial. That's not a good reason to vote for someone, you know?
Yeah,
They're in the same
yeah.
sorority.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of there's this dude Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
You guys heard him?
Yeah.
I think so.
He's got ideas that I like, but there's no one in particular that I'm like.
Is he a Democrat?
He's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
People like
what I-
Buttigieg too. Sorry.
What I like about him is that he has real ideas about why people voted for Trump that go way deeper than just the sort of surface antagonisms, you know. And he understands that, like, Trump used race as a smokescreen for automation, taking people's jobs and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and like he blamed China for things and
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I just like people. I mean, he's got integrity. That's what I like about him.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I might not agree with like he wants like universal basic income. I think there's merit to that. You know, giving people like a $1,000 paycheck every month or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know whether that would work. It's pretty. Radically changed the economy. You know.
Yeah.
But
At the same time, like at least he's got integrity.
Right.
I'm looking
Yeah.
for someone like that, and that's hard to come by in politics. You know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like one of the things that helped Trump win is the fact that like people felt like he wasn't doing that. I'm just going to say what people want to hear to get your vote, right? Like he goes out there and says these so radically kind of like inappropriate things.
Yeah.
So like they felt like he was genuine because he's not a polished politician.
Right.
So it's kind of like his brashness made him seem more relatable to that demographic of people. And it's like it's weird because like all of these people are scrambling to be the Democratic nominee because they think like whoever gets it is going to be like an easy win over this guy that we just have to get out of here, right? But it's like, but like you guys are saying, like nobody's really coming in sort of like just being themselves or everybody's they're politicians. They're politicians. Politicians should not be a job title. You should
You know
not.
what it is? People are thinking this is the Bush and Obama won election where like the Republicans just fucked up so badly. It was a cakewalk to the presidency.
Yeah, I mean, but even beyond that, it's like, like I said, like I was talking off air, like before the people who used to become politicians were like lawyers and
Yeah.
scholars and people who were
Or
like
military.
very, very, very intelligent
Established
people.
Literate people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
people that read books.
Alexander
Yeah.
Hamilton and
Understood them.
yeah.
and John Jay and all those people who wrote the Federalist Papers and wrote the Constitution, like we're intelligent people. Now it's more of a popularity contest, and it's like that's kind of where the whole thing is like messed up. That's where we lose by the two-party system
Yeah.
completely like destroys the weight of the fact that these people are supposed to be working for the people because they don't have to please the people. They have to please their party, right? Like Bernie Sanders didn't lose to Hillary because people didn't like support him. The Democrats wanted Hillary to be the
nominee,
and
yeah.
they made sure she was.
And when you
Yeah.
pull that back, the party basically is served whoever can pay for those votes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my whole thing is I feel like I'm Mr. Pessimist today.
I mean, this is something to be pessimistic about, though.
Well, it's hard to get excited because, like, yeah, you talk about Andrew Yang, and it's like Yang, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Andrew Yang, and integrity, intelligence, all of those things that you would want in a leader, and you would want who was someone to run a system, and then you realize the way that our system is set up and designed, you cannot be an individual within it to change it. So you need like a collective, whether it's from your actual Congress or your constituencies that are voting for you. And we're just not, from my vantage, we're just not in the mindset, both in our politicians and in our communities, to make those things. Because all of those ideas that Andrew might have, I think of some of the things that Bernie said, and I'm not a burner or in any stretch of the imagination,
Burner?
or what would they call them?
You're not
Yeah.
burning. That's good to know.
Are they called the
As your
burn-
wife.
Wait, what was it again? I forgot.
I forget yeah,
Yeah.
whatever the Team Bernie got people
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Feeling
the burn?
You
I
feeling
don't know.
something like
Something
that.
like that.
and
A
I'm
Burning Man?
Yeah, and I'm not someone and I'm not someone who was like big on all of his ideas, but he definitely had some ideas that I could, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I could see that. But you're asking people to kind of be fish out of water when you talk about things like I think we had that debate on here one
Probably.
time about
Maybe.
like a universal income versus something else, and this age-old kind of myth about how like human beings are not motivated if they're given stuff, which has been totally scientifically unproven. That's not an actual thing.
I mean,
Capitalists say that.
People find it hard to believe in things that they've never seen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, or that they
Yet
Wow.
Christianity still prevails.
and well, that's
I was about to make yeah.
well, that's because they've seen religion. You know what I'm saying? They've seen people be devoted to this thing, so they like understand that that's a way you can behave. But like they people told like socialism doesn't work and communism doesn't work. But how much do they really know about those subjects?
Well,
How many?
communism doesn't work. It's just another way for one person to accomplish.
But how do we know that
power.
communism doesn't work? Have we
Because
studied?
there's so many different communist countries.
But
in the
and do we
world.
know why those things fail? Do we know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, communism as a failure has been American propaganda since the Cold War. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
There's an element that maybe America made communism or socialism fail because we wanted it, and we were the most
Right, and
powerful country. But to Dale's point, I mean, it has been the cause of more deaths than Hitler even.
Yeah.
I mean,
cause. You know what I mean?
And democracy, like the way that we have it, hasn't. Like this people die in this
Yeah.
country from homelessness. People die in this country.
Kills people all over the
You know,
world.
as
overtly.
has capitalism not killed so many? Like, you know.
Well, the other thing is too
Only
is
reason-
communism and socialism are essentially the same political idea, but just in a different
Yeah.
spectrum. So it's
Yeah,
like
communism is more
communism.
extreme.
Saying communism works doesn't mean that the ideas to work. It means like it's
It-
taking that idea to the extreme. It's like
Yeah.
capitalism and the same thing.
But it's not even saying is it hasn't worked in the implications that it's been put into so far. You know what I'm saying? But whether it was, I'm just saying, like, people have this idea of, it's kind of like gender fluidity or the binary. Like, people are so attached to what they know and what they see exists that the idea that doesn't have to be is so hard for people to overcome.
Well, and I think it goes back to the point of the political systems that we have don't allow for great ideas or people with integrity to actually kind of push and trudge forward. I mean, the last president I can think of that had some level of integrity would probably be Jimmy Carter. And what happened in his presidency?
He's still alive.
He is still alive.
So crazy that he's
A
still
lot of great, and again, not saying he was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but things like Habitat for Humanity. I mean, he's one of the first presidents and one of the few presidents that literally went on public television. I think in like 1970. I don't remember the exact day. The exact year, but literally told Americans to stop spending, that we are spending too much money and we have to figure out ways to conserve. Like the most anti-American things, he was actually the most American president. He wasn't about excess, all of these types of things, communal ideas, to be honest with you. And yet, when we look at how the history of his presidency has been laid out in our country, I mean, he got considered like a Looney Tune. He got railroaded. He got the Iran-Contra scandal, or the not the Iran-Contra scandal. I'm sorry, the hostage situation, the hostage crisis, the fuel embargoes that he got pinned on, and all because his ideas were so, in that period of time, so progressive and so really more about a collective ideal than what the actual political American machine was. And it's to your point, it's like people didn't understand what these things were, didn't even realize the ideas that he had were good for them, that he was actually a president of the people. And again, not saying he was
And that's what
perfect,
the
not saying
president's
everything it is,
supposed
but
to be,
we kind of live in this kind of like grinding gears type of situation. And yes, it's run by people, but you realize like people at the top, that small few, that small group is basically continuing these ideas and continuing a culture and an atmosphere where you can't really actually operate. We kind of do need, like, I'm not saying it has to be blood, but we do kind of need to have a revolution, like an actual revolution. But as we stand here with primaries and Democrats and Republicans and independent parties and all of this stuff, it's hard to hear ideas and go, okay, I see how that's going to work. And like,
And
you know what? People will wake up.
A quick public service announcement for anyone who's listening.
Yeah.
If someone says they're independent, it does not necessarily mean they're mid of the road. Like, I'm independent, and I say I'm independent, but I'm like far left.
And also
I'm
the
not
Tea Party
middle of
is
the road.
independent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does a
Yeah.
revolution look like then?
To be honest with you, I think of the Purple Revolution that happened in Eastern Europe, 10 years ago. I think about Reykjavik when all of the bankers in 2008 in the recession, literally, they just went into the streets and like, we're shutting the banks down. And the other way around. The thing to what Baxter's saying, I wholeheartedly agree, because the reality of it is it's so funny, and I'll use this as a funny story and analogy. Dale and I went to South Carolina this past week, as we kind of been talking about, and our flight got canceled. And we're on the line with this amazing, very awesome family. Rick, Tsunami Sound, surf rocker, basically senior citizens with their grandson. Anyway, we were all in line, pissed off because they had grounded every flight to South Carolina, or at least to Myrtle Beach, and we're all standing in line,
or anywhere close to Myrtle Beach. Anything on the coast,
anything close,
basically.
And everybody's upset about the customer service. Or like, why are these other planes flying? And it's the same moment I always have when I'm on a train in the subway and the subway goes out, or they change this stop. I'm like, if we all just said for 2 days, we're not riding the train.
Yeah.
Like, if 2
2
million New Yorkers just said, we're not riding the train. If everyone that pays for a flight just said, we're not buying the flight, these systems would just fall apart.
Yeah.
When you look at history, when you look at the Black Power movement, the whole reason why it failed was simply because of the fact that, or why it was attacked, or not. Well, hold on. So let me change that. Not fail. Sorry.
No, it failed, but
attacked. But
right.
attacked was because they really had people buying into a collectivism. And when you realize that all of these people literally need us to keep those gears grinding, things would change. But for real reasons,
it's the trouble is getting people to see the us. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and the reason why they can't see the us is because you're constantly distracted.
Well, not only because you're constantly distracted.
Our society is an individualist society. Like, you worry about your own personal fortune. You worry about your success.
It's who wants to be a millionaire, not who wants to make a millionaire.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or who wants to help somebody be a millionaire.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I mean that to me is the revolution. I mean, divestment is probably the and not talking about a boycott. I'm literally talking about everybody just tune in and walk out. And to be honest with you, there probably would be blood, but it wouldn't be because we'd be firing guns. It's because they would be forcing us back into whatever the situation or the system is, because none of these things can work. None of these things can work if we don't participate in them. But because of what Baxter's saying, I totally agree in the sense of like, we can't imagine not participating in them. And we also can't really fully imagine the reality of, like, you know what? Probably the person that's in your neighborhood, regardless of where they're from, regardless of their skin color, regardless of who they choose to sleep with or love or marry, they got kids, they want to eat, they want to relax, they don't want to enjoy something. There's probably more things collectively in common with the people that are literally within the mile radius that you live, and even beyond that than otherwise. But we don't focus on those.
Like Fred Hampton up in Chicago when he was doing a thing. One of the reasons he got murdered is because he was going up to the rural areas and talking to the poor whites, and he was telling them like, "Yo, the same stuff that's happening to you is happening to us." And he was collectivizing poor white people and poor black people in Chicago. And he was like 18 years old or some crazy shit like that.
And also the other thing too
and
is that
he had building and killed him.
Well, the other thing is too is and they spun this, but the reality of it was that he also was taking young black people who were at war for no other reasons, and they were on the wrong sides of the track, and not having them mobilize against a government is like, y'all need to chill out. Like, doesn't matter North Side, doesn't matter you a Spain, you're this and that and the third. Like, y'all need to chill out. Like, we need to figure out how can we clean up our neighborhoods. We got to figure out how we're going to put the garbage out. We got to figure out how we can keep like your grandma safe, and that, that type of stuff. And when you see that type of collective action, it's the whole reason why Martin Luther King got executed. They were all good with Martin Luther King when he was just like kumbaya. The minute he's like, wait, you know what? Poor people, we all the same. Doesn't matter where you're from. All of a sudden, it's Vietnam. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, whoa. Y'all can't all be chilling together like that. We gotta cut that out, because they know once we walk away from these things, they fall apart.
And just another PSA: Kumbaya is a Gullah song. It is not. It was not made up by little white kids around the fire. It's a Gullah song from the Sea Islands of South Carolina. But since we were talking about the black struggle, let's get into "Strange Fruit" by Osiris Anthem.
Hey, shout out to Osiris Anthem.
My bad.
If you got Air Jordans on your feet, those are strange seeds. See, Michael Jordan was like strange fruit. It was rare during its prime for a nigga to be that high in the air. It was a long time since niggas had crossed through court lines to be found hanging 10 feet high in the sky. Take a picture, because in the early 1900s, no nigga wanted to be like Mike. If a nigga was posterized, it was for a reward, dead or alive. If a nigga went up, he never came down to dunk. His lifeless body came down to be dumped. His tongue hanging all out like Jordan after a buzzer beater from the noose-induced seizure. And just like Mike Man, the show was held and watched by mostly white fans. And just like Mike Man, that black man would pass. And that rope was like a shot by Tony Kukoc. They would just pull up and release his life, man. These are the linchpins of defeat that allow for Michael Jordan to be able to hang his silhouette from your feet. Strange fruit produced great seeds. Strange fruit, strange seeds. Strange fruit, they hung us up in propane suits instead of blazing the face all our damn roots. They did it all for nothing, something they were paid to, or did it just for fun? The violence was never enough. Killing women and children, they love surrounding niggas. Play hide and seek, click, boom, yeah, we found you, nigga. The shot to the arm because they didn't want to kill him. See, this is war, and the plan was to torture the victims. How could I call it war? We had no fucking chance of winning. This was slavery, so fuck where Abraham Lincoln said in 63, a nigga, my G, and they was out for blood. Fuck if you innocent, B. Willie Lynch, yeah, they did it so intricately. Cut last to abort your innocent seed. Strange fruit has produced its eminent seeds, and we living with what they call PTSD, post-traumatic slave shit. Shackled to a slave ship, taught to think we ain't shit, so now we don't say shit. And if we do say shit, they saying that we racist. Nigga, fuck. What's my reparations? If you always prepared, you don't need preparation. So I use this music for y'all education, from Harriet Tubman to Trayvon Martin. Started from the bottom, now we back where we started. Thank God for Barack, Oprah, and Mr. Carter. Give these kids something to look up to. It's harder being a black youth in a place where we lack truth. If your skin is lactose, then you'll be all right. But to be packed toast because the hood is so fucked up. Poverty's everywhere. Bodies be everywhere. Cops on the radio. Where he's at? There you go. Gave him more shots than he had on his Instagram. And his big toe is the only thing that got tagged. Goddamn, got me feeling like a Red Sox fan. Fuck NYPD, you feel me? Not the fair ones, the evil. You see me? They always want to be us, but never want to be us. The system was set up just to delete us. Death or dishonor are the choices that they leave us. Amadou Diallo or Abner Louima. See, Martin Luther King is somewhere sleeping, so you know that means that man is still dreaming. And we got to do the same, strike with the truest aim. Stay driven and our kids will do the same. And even if your fruit is strange, teach them that being different is what produces change. There was blood on the leaves when we used to hang. I put my blood in these leaves so that the truth can hang. Them slave days remind me what Drake says. The motherfuckers never loved us. Remember? Hold my phone. Now let freedom ring like I let my cell do when I see a call that's unknown. I said the motherfuckers never loved us. Remember? Never forget, because the people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without its roots. It makes me upset that we pledge allegiance to a flag that's darker than blue, supremacist white, and slave blood red. I live my life by a religion that my master force fed. Please, God, Father, tell me why I keep waking up every morning to this horse's head. Thank you.
So that was Osiris Anthem with Strange Fruit, and I actually don't know the names of any of these. Like, no one told me, but that's what I'm assuming.
I think it's called Strange Seeds.
Strange Seeds.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I
What about
apologize
Osiris?
to Osiris Anthem.
Shout out to Osiris Anthem. He is also the current world champion of End of the Week MC Challenge. Shout out to that brother. 2 times. He beat everyone in New York, then flew to a different country and beat everyone from around the world.
Ka-clack.
Twice.
Yeah.
When he went around the country, but was it English based or like?
So
how did it work?
In New York, it's English based, right? But
of course.
the World Finals has people from all over the world. Obviously, a lot of Francophiles. So many Francophiles. So oftentimes a French-speaking MC wins. But here's an anecdote about Osiris Anthem. So we were in France the last World Finals, and he starts off his round. The first round is a written round. You get to do whatever you want. But second round is a cappella. I think it's the a cappella round. So he's doing this a cappella, and he's talking about freedom and what that means, and how France gave the United States the Statue of Liberty as like a present. But then, France also has been historically unfair and not so gracious to the country of Haiti, and he was going to that, and he was like rapping. I forgot the line, but it gets to a point. He comes out with like He's wearing like a Statue of Liberty, kind of like the crown thing, and he has like a torch. And he's like, "You can keep your symbol for freedom, France. You could have it back." And he throws the torch in the crowd in France. And it's like those moments, like, how's this going to play out? How's this going to play out? Crowd goes wild. It's crazy. It was like, yo, that's dope.
You can argue that global hip hop has maintained more of a political voice, so that there is more room for something like that to happen. Whereas opposed to if someone came into a hip hop show in New York and said something about America, you know, making thousands of people disappear in Argentina, then maybe not.
It would go crazy. I think hip hop. The reason why hip hop has survived for so long is because it is always a culture of rebellion. You know, that's even why, like the music they're making today. The reason why it works so hard is because people don't like it and they keep talking shit about it. And as long as music has that, as long as music has like an antagonist, people being like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, stop doing that." There's gonna be a counterculture to kind of make it thrive. Rock and roll, jazz, all of those music had the same thing in their heyday. The moment that stops, the moment that like people like fall kind of like, it's not kind of aggressive, it's not kind of abrasive anymore, is where it loses its you know, it becomes like what rock and roll is today or what jazz is today, like super acceptable.
Well, kind of think we're there.
I mean,
we're starting to get there, especially with certain types of hip hop. But talking about things having an opposition, one thing that I noticed when I moved to New York is how like there are so many cultures in New York. But everyone, to me, still seems so separate. And, like, if you grow up in one neighborhood, and, like, you know, I have a friend who's Dominican, and she grew up in a Dominican neighborhood, and, like, could not tell you any African-Americans she knew from Brooklyn. Like, could not. Like, she wouldn't be able to tell you anyone that she knew that was African-American. And then I know people with the same, if they live in Harlem, they're like, I only know, like, African people. Or everyone's here. Everyone is here, but they're still so separate. And it makes me kind of wonder, like, is it changing? Is it going in it's
kind of like the idea of, like, some people talk about how the North is more racist than the South. Like, you know, like it's just, which I don't know if it's true or not.
I don't know if it's, but it's definitely more veiled.
Like, I mean, if you look at our school system, we're the most segregated school or state in the country, but that's largely due to wealth. I mean, so many communities are getting separated by wealth, and like, you know, what's going into each school. I imagine that same trickle down is affecting different communities in some way, and why people stay siloed. And also, it just takes forever to get anywhere here.
Yeah,
Brooklyn's another state from Harlem.
Yeah, it really is.
Not to me.
When me and Macau were dating, I was still living in the Bronx when we first started dating the first year, and it was an hour and a half commute. Like,
love.
Different country.
Yeah,
real love.
It felt like a completely different country. I'd have to pack like a weekender bag every time I went.
And it was definitely a one way because I had my own apartment and she had.
I lived with a family,
so I kind of won that one.
No. Yeah,
there was a point in time where I lived at Mushulu Parkway, and I was seeing a girl who lived in Coney Island. And that's the top of the Bronx and the bottom of Brooklyn.
Wow.
It would take us both an hour to get to Union Square, like from each of it.
How long did you date for?
It was like a month or so.
A week. I can't see this anymore.
It was a fling.
Yeah.
That's a long distance
That's a
relationship.
commitment.
Word.
That's a commitment.
Like a 2 hour.
I'm thinking, did y'all get like hotel rooms or something?
No, it's just if somebody came over, you knew they were staying. You know.
Yeah, it was like I didn't travel that far.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's 1 a.m. I'm gonna go home now. No, you're not.
Nope.
Right. You're not gonna get home till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes me wonder, especially after taking a trip to South Carolina, and there's still the Confederate flag being sold in shops. You know, like we saw Confederate flag beach towels.
There's literally a store called Dixieland that we went by.
Yeah. I mean, Dixie, people are named Dixie.
Yeah,
but it had the Confederate flag.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was like,
It was like literally everything you buy from this store is going to have a Confederate flag on it.
Well, it's interesting because are you talking about like the collectivism? Because like the internet changes everything, right?
The internet does change everything.
And it's like
I think it also makes us more individual, like going back to like
Or isolated.
But
and so we don't see the
alternative
separation more.
Alternatively, it makes us more aware of other, because like I feel like this move we've had to people being like politically correct, or how to say, or like people being aware of like people's pronouns and people being aware of like a lot of that comes from this information being available to you at all times, right? You can't get on the internet without seeing something about somebody's existence that you didn't know before. It's like previously in life, the only people you interacted with was your friends at school, your family at home, and then whatever you saw on the television, right? So if everyone at home was calling people a certain thing and everyone at school was calling people a certain thing, that's all you knew. But now you can get on the internet and find out about a kid who lives all the way across the world who's going through this thing that you didn't even know like was a thing before. Even things like the Confederate flag. The South in this isolated place, Confederate flag. You say, hey, that's offensive to some people. It's always been this way, and this is the only way I can ever imagine it being. That's that. But now something like that gets on the internet, and now everyone starts thinking about it and talking about it, and they're like, yeah, the Confederate flag does suck. I remember when rappers used to wear Confederate flags in their rap videos.
But you know what, though?
That was only a few years
Yeah,
ago.
I hear that, but I think that those ideas you're talking about don't fully penetrate, because still in the South, like the Confederate flag, for all of the hype about South Carolina having the flag taken down from the embassy, and there was a movement to have all these State House, and all of these Confederate soldier statues being torn down, all this other stuff. The reality of it is a lot of that culture really hasn't like changed. It might have been like shifted a little bit, but it goes back to, I feel like a large theme we've been kind of talking about today is just like how much, kind of what Brian was saying, like how much of our DNA is going to change, like how much of it collectively are going to collectively realize, like, you know what, this hurts someone. I probably shouldn't do this. But this oppresses someone. We all should not be doing this, and we're all going to thoughtfully think about it. I think
the kids, the youngs, people coming up are becoming more sensitive to like other people's kind of like experiences.
I think in some places that's true, but I think I've taught some places where you would think that young people would be so in tune with like, okay, these different realities and other people's experiences and who they are, but they're learning the same things that their parents learn from their parents and from the communities. And kind of what we're talking about with this whole segregation, you still have people that are living within these kind of pockets where, regardless of what's happening on around them, there's this bubble. Those people don't necessarily stay in those bubbles. They still go
that's
out.
That's always going to happen. But like even us right now, you can't tell me that the world is the same as it was like when we were younger. I remember when
There's a problem with the internet, though, and
of course, definitely.
The problem is it's built on algorithms. And the people that have control of those algorithms, in Silicon Valley, they're only showing you the shit that you want it.
Right, without a shadow of a doubt.
Or they want you to see. And so we're at a very, very precarious point in history where if we don't, and this is another thing that I'm not very optimistic about, but if we don't understand the algorithms and like, collectively are able to take control of them, they are going to control us.
Yeah, they're already doing that.
But it's going to be
That's how Trump got elected.
Trump and then Brexit, and then. But the thing is, we're not even scratching the surface of how it's going to be. It's going to be this time.
This is the wild west of the internet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
And then they're going to like figure it out, and then they're going to like.
And so that's how we get this. All of we're all liberals here. Am I safe to say that? I don't know.
I guess.
If we're gonna, I don't like to categorize myself even, but we do. When we get online, we see the shit that we want to see, and
I'd also say this to that point as well, and I wanted to bring this up too. And I just checked this because I remembered it being a little bit lower than this, but it's actually higher than I thought. But it's still crazy. So the UN basically surveyed the amount of people on the planet, essentially, I don't know how they did it, it's in the Washington Post, who has internet access.
Right.
47% of the world actually has internet access. So, like, I think I think about my privilege all the time, and not just in the binaries of like gender or money, but like even just access.
Yeah.
So like, even though these amazing ideas are happening, and even though there is profoundly multiples more people being more aware of more things and having completely unfettered access depending on where you are, because in Iran it's definitely censored countrywide, in China over 1 billion people, completely centered. I mean, China literally has its own intranet. They're not even on the actual
North
world.
Korea.
Yeah,
North Korea.
Yeah.
So again, I feel like, and I've thought about this as more of I've traveled, and especially being in New York City for the last 20 years, and realizing like this is a global city, even with all of its disparities in terms of wealth and things like that. The reality of it is that this is kind of a privileged place to be.
Yeah,
we have
without a shadow of a
so
doubt.
much access to so many things, and when you step outside of that and realize, like, you know what you and I are talking about, and what we have access to, a lot of the world actually doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult. To me, it's almost in a weird kind of perverse way comforting, because I'm like, oh, that's why this actually isn't working. Because before a lot of these things, I was thinking like, well, didn't you read the paper? Didn't you Google it? And the more I'm like, oh, you didn't, because you didn't have it. You've never seen it. That's why things aren't moving.
Well, not even to get on to like the people who do have access here, they're not like reading stats have gone plummeted down, because like even like articles and things that you post that
Right.
like agree with you, like people are just reading headlines, they're not
Yep.
even reading the full article. So
Yeah.
like they're just taking, they're not taking advantage of like the access they have. They take it for granted. So.
Yeah.
But even saying that, like, so what's it? 47% of the world has internet access, right?
Yeah.
How long has the internet been around? So like even though like that we should take into account our privilege and the fact that everyone doesn't have access to these things, in the space of in our lifetime, like what has happened is outrageous.
It's true.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Think about
Yeah.
like a car. Like how long did it take for everyone to get cars in the world? Probably,
Right.
Probably a long ass.
But
time.
like,
Yeah.
That's true.
Like we have internet in New York, in the subways, on buses. There's internet. I just found out they have
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I found out that
Your
just-
Wi-Fi works on the subway?
Yeah, mine doesn't work, but I'm connected. Nominally.
And also, if
on-
you've seen
on the
those
subway,
those
yeah.
obelisks that just sit on the street, do you know those give out free Wi-Fi? It's
Yeah.
nuts how like they want us logged on. But you're absolutely right. It's all okay. And it's like you got China and these places. There's a reason that they want to control what people can get access to. Because the more people have unfettered access, the more people learn about other people's conditions. The more people learn about like what is possible in other places in the world, what other people's lives are like, and they don't want you to know that.
But they're actively
Also,
doing things to
I
shut that
feel
down.
like-
That's the thing.
On the
Yeah.
opposite end of the spectrum, I feel like globalization actually disconnects you from your own community, and you forget about certain things that
Maybe.
are just a part of your community and just a part of your culture. And you don't realize they're not happening other places, so you don't even think about changing it because
Definitely.
you just think everyone does it. And I think the Confederate flag is one of those things for some people. Like they're just like, well, there's probably everywhere all over the South, people or everyone everywhere has a Confederate flag, or
But-
everyone has their heritage, and I think that's how some people think about it.
Maybe, but like so I don't. I know it's anecdotal, but like I never considered the Confederate flag to be like something to be upset about. Like I just knew it was the Confederates. They lost. That was their flag. People in the South, they like that, right? But then like I see people like get upset about it, and you start thinking about it. It's like, yo, why should this symbol of like the South's dedication to to slavery, pretty much, still exist in this country? Like
I mean, or even if we're talking about Spanish, like over the week I had to explain to someone why, they were like, well, if you immigrate here, you should learn English. And I was like, well, if you're specifically talking about Spanish-speaking countries, all these different Spanish-speaking countries speak different types of Spanish. So you come here and you're tested in Spanish,
right?
and you might not
from
know
España.
that Spanish,
Yeah.
right? And then you're trying to learn English, possibly from someone who speaks like maybe with a New York accent.
Don't be
Or-
from.
and
don't
then
be
you
from
go to
Cata-
another room.
Don't be from
Yeah.
Catalonia in
Coffee.
Spain. Don't be from northern Spain. Don't
Right.
be Basque.
Yeah.
It's gonna be different.
Or like I've been in a platoon with Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Mexicans, and they all complain about each other's Spanish.
Right.
Like so, and then half of them took the Spanish test for the military so they could rate as translators and failed.
Somebody
Whoa.
said Puerto Ricans speak Spanish and
So
English.
how do you learn English?
Was the standardization for the test like fucked up in any way?
No,
It was-
I mean it was just
Because
it was
they could speak
proper Spanish.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It was proper Spanish,
I
like
see.
from Spain.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just like Jade, I'm pulling you into the conversation, which I am very upset to learn that you were on mic for the last,
Uh-oh.
It's,
and you're never on mic.
it's like
But like,
Trevor's by himself.
oh, okay.
I don't have a mic there.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jade is Mexican American, and her roommate Adrian is Ecuadorian, but he grew up, born and raised in the Bronx. Jade is born and raised in Texas, and they speak different Spanish. And
Jade
I
is
think
from
Adrian,
Texas?
I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, you're right. You don't speak Spanish, but you're learning Spanish. And Adrian likes to speak to her in Bronx Spanish, which is different.
Are you? Oh, you blowing up spots? Damn,
I mean,
Dale.
it's an
Damn,
example.
Dale.
I'm Puerto
It's an
Rican. I don't speak
example.
Spanish.
Yeah.
Where in Texas?
Yeah.
That's true. He was trying to teach me some slang, and I was like, first of all, I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Bronx thing, but that's going to be everywhere, right? So it's hard if you're like, I was teaching a class where half of my students were from all over the place, and I'm from South Carolina. My co-teacher is Indian. The classroom teacher is from Manhattan. We were all speaking different forms of English, and I'm like, they're doomed. They're not learning English at all. I don't know what that.
Or maybe they're
to
learning
do
what
with them.
English will actually, eventually be, right? You know what I'm saying?
Maybe.
You know, bringing this hip hop real quick. It's funny. A lot of
Let's do
a lot of my friends from other parts of the world, in particular in Brazil, and Africa that I've worked with, they all had a very similar story, which was hilarious to me, because they all talked about learning English by either watching classic hip hop movies like Boys in the Hood or Colors, or literally just listening to rap records over and over again. And when I was in Nepal, in Brazil, and in Africa, they all had the same. Like, I literally interviewed them because I wanted to find that out. And it's
we
like,
were
yeah,
in-
we learn English by just listening to all of your like
We were in
commercial
Hungary.
stuff.
We were in Hungary and met a musician with a Jamaican accent, and we were like,
Oh,
"Where are
that's
you
right,
from?"
that's right, that's
and
right.
He's like, "I'm from Hungary." And we were like,
No, no,
"Why
no.
do you speak with a
Hungry.
Jamaican accent?"
No,
They
and the
say-
pat,
he
but the
learned English.
no, but
from
the
listening to
patois was on
reggae.
point. No,
Did
no,
he say
I-
Hungry?
no, but the patois was on
Like,
point. He has
that-
no Jamaican, African, nothing in him.
Did
He's
he call it
straight
Hungary?
Hungarian. Nah,
Hungarian?
no, had lots, but you know what's
Hungarian.
but you know what's interesting about that too? If he had been in the United States like right now, he probably would have gotten like majorly messed with for appropriation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in his mind,
true.
he's just like, this is just my appreciation for this this
Yeah.
culture.
Thin line between appreciation and appropriation.
There really is.
It is, but it's interesting though
But
because
he was learning about the culture.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
actual- like,
What
he
I've-
knew.
Thin line.
Yeah.
when we've here's the thing for me. Here's the demarcation for me, and this is the way I look at these things. Are you looking to profit off of this? For me,
Right.
that's where the appropriation comes in. So
Right.
if you have a love of a particular culture and you're doing all of these things to basically like include yourself in it, there is one thing about representation and you know certain things that you should not be necessarily doing. Like, I'm not going to wear a bindi, you know, because I don't understand what that is, what its actual religious or cultural responsibilities of that is, or you know certain other symbols, but if you love and appreciate this music and you understand the roots of it and you're trying to follow in those edicts and ideas, the only issue I'm going to have is if you're either one, trying to take those ideas and pass them off as your own, or two, you're going to utilize them and profit off them, and you have an advantage because of your privilege to profit off it more than from the original people.
What if you appreciate and profit off of it?
That's to what Baxter's saying. For me, that's where it's like it gets a little dicey.
murky.
Yeah, it gets a little murky. But
I mean,
just-
it's not murky. It's like that's literally appropriation. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, and it maybe it's not that person's fault because they're not, and that's not the intention of it. But it's like, you know, if Bo Derek cornrows her hair and it gets like all this love and stuff, but like when black women have been doing it for years and years
They
and
get
years,
fired
and
from
it
their
like
jobs.
that hasn't
Or suspended from
the intent doesn't have any bearing on the outcome of it.
Well, see, this is why some people though approach appropriation. This is why there's a big argument about like what a quote unquote reverse appropriation. Certain things that are done because of they have like a religious or spiritual base, and other people use them. There are those people that think that regardless if you're profiting off of it, like if you're gonna chant them, or like I remember talking about like I've seen stuff about like people talk about using spirit animals, like. Unless you understand the very, very specific way in which indigenous people utilize that idea and concept of spirit animal, regardless of you saying, well, I have origins this, that, and the third. If you have origins in this, that, and the third, then you should be studying that said practice and then using it appropriately.
Yeah, and you kind of already cleared that when you said like
Yeah.
the person like has a genuine like interest in learning about it.
Right.
Because if you do that, then you're not going to do that in the first place.
Right.
Like, you know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like if you're out there using it arbitrarily or in vain, it's obvious that you don't have an understanding of the thing and you kind of just wear it as a costume, literally, and that's appropriation.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's in the context. It's all in the context.
Yeah.
You know, like. Do white people get upset if people appropriate their culture? I don't know, like, you know, but it's,
You know, I had an interesting, like, just random. I had a drunken conversation with a friend one day, and she's white, and she was talking about how, like, what the fuck is my culture? Like, I'm just white American, and I have no culture. Like, what is that? And I was like, capitalism?
That is an
Pretty
interesting
much.
question. What would be like white American culture?
Right.
Can-
Like, me coming from the South, I'm just like, well, everything that's touted...
Southern culture?
Well, everything that's kind of touted as Southern culture is like either full aristocratic, right, or it's stuff from Africa that like nannies and slaves that were raising babies taught them.
What I was going to say is like not being white and being an American under protest. That's my new term. American under protest. I always look at it this way: the only people that are indigenous to this place were basically mass murdered and killed. So you have to go back to like where your ancestors are from. That is your culture. Whatever you actually do that is American, it is some amalgamation of what the group of people that you came from, be they European, be
But isn't
they,
that every culture?
Yes, but again, see, we're talking, and these are the type of things where I'm like, you have to get into the deep roots of certain things, and people don't got time for that. They just want the microwave thing, but it's like that's really what it is.
I don't think all like it's like, you know, you could go back to like why Italians do pasta, and maybe that goes back to like Asia because of the noodles and all, like, but it's like but that's still like their culture, right? Like I think like black American culture,
American pasta
hip
is
hop,
different.
that's black American culture. Like, you know what I'm saying? We created that here. It might have roots in Africa with drums and things. It might have roots in the Caribbean, but like hip hop is black American culture, right? Like that's something that was created here that is very American, and it's spread other places.
Well, then
so
you could say square dancing.
That's a good point, though, because entertainment's a good point, like music and sports,
Right,
because
'cause
the thing is, athletes and musicians who are black,
Yeah.
you know, have often been taken advantage of and exploited,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and you know, you think of the NFL right now, right? Or I even think of the NBA. Everyone thinks the NBA is so benevolent, and I think
Yeah.
I can't help. I love basketball.
Yeah.
And so I'm a diehard like Steph Curry fan. Like I can't stop because I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we all know who's making most of the money. It's
Right.
taken a long time for it to be a 50-50 split, like at
Yeah.
the bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, it's really tough because these people people aren't going to stop watching sports. You know?
Well, no, I'm
They're
just-
not.
I'm a diehard sports fan.
Yeah.
Dad will tell you. So like
'Cause I love-
basketball,
it's an art.
baseball,
It's an
yeah.
art to me, you
Well,
know?
it's the purity of the competition,
Yeah.
right? But like I think also the other underlying theme I feel here is like money ruins everything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I was just on a show yesterday talking about AAU basketball and how just it just corrupts those kids' lives. Like, you know,
Right.
because they have agents, reps, like everyone just feeding on them
Yep.
by the time they're like 12 years old.
Yeah, there's
You
an
know?
There's so
article
much-
in ESPN
there's
I
so
was
much
reading
money to
about
be
that.
made.
Yeah.
What is the article I was reading about that in ESPN? It's not even just that, even their physical health. They're
That
talking
yesterday
about how
came out, yeah.
they're talking about how like newer athletes, like they think about Kevin Durant, there's this rash of injuries. Like it used to be a very easy thing in the NBA to play 82 games a year. There was never an issue with that. And over the last, say, 20 years, you see more and more guys getting rest and playing 66 games and injuries. And what they've been finding out, like physicians have been finding out, is that younger players are playing hardcore competitive basketball year-round, a whole decade earlier than they were before. So you weren't really seriously getting into like a highly competitive basketball game.
Until you actually made it to the NBA.
No. Like 19, 18, something like
Yeah,
that.
at
You've
least
got
college.
11-year-olds being scouted in YouTube and playing in cross country. They literally are professional players
And commoditized.
Yeah. At middle school age. There was a I forget the name of the basketball player right now. He was from the Bronx. 13, he had a lawsuit against Nike because he had this saying called gelling, and it was basically a way to kind of like how you like shake a guy down when you're playing basketball if you're like trying to get by him.
Yeah.
And it went viral, like it blew up on YouTube. He had coined this phrase, whole thing. He was getting all of the credit for it, even online. Nike came in and basically made a shoe and a whole campaign around it and sold it for like something like tens of millions of dollars of stuff. No credit for it, nothing. And you realize, like, these kids don't even have a chance to even become, like, you know, their own
There goes that
entrepreneurs.
internet again.
They don't even have a chance to
Yeah.
even, like, fully develop as physical human beings because they're, again, it's going back to this driving these gears, this system.
Your book touches on some of that too.
Oh yeah, well, I wish it was more, but I got a character who's not. Most of my characters aren't likable.
Okay,
but
I already like your book already.
yeah. There's an athletic director, but the thing is, it goes back to some of the stuff we were talking about with politics, because you got this guy who's really just like grifting and grafting, but his ultimate goal is to get college players paid. You know,
Right.
And I think that's a big issue. I mean, even if I was a black athlete, I understand LeBron James so much more now. Like now that he's older and everything, and like I used to be like, oh, he's not Jordan because he doesn't have the same fire, he doesn't have that killer instinct.
Yeah.
But he's worried about a lot more than basketball.
Yeah.
You know, like he's getting paid a lot to do something, but like it's. The whole community is getting exploited from,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Right.
it's difficult. I understand him a lot more now,
Yeah.
and I respect him. I've always respected him, except for when he went to the Heat.
So I've always had this crazy idea, and I don't know like how realistic it is. It probably isn't very real. But like, is there like, do we need money? Like, is there a way that the intrinsic value of a thing can be appreciated and kind of like leveraged or used without like intermediary value?
A fictional thing.
That is
A
a
fictional
really
thing.
good question.
Because-
I mean,
Yeah.
at one point
It was
there was
done.
a barter system,
Yeah.
right? And I think, and then at one point, you know, paper money and coin money came, or coin money first came, and then paper money came, and I know that part has
But
been
even the
attributed to like Cleopatra with using like paper and
Yeah.
saying it's kind of like a loan. This is worth this thing,
Right,
and then
a
you
note,
get something
a note of
else.
debt.
A
right?
note of
Yeah.
debt.
I think
yeah,
before
but-
that, I think it started with like grain or something. Like they used to
Yeah.
like trade, like it used to be like an actual
Yeah.
thing
Right.
to use. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
at,
Like,
at
Because-
one point in some, because like the slur Indian giver comes from like giving someone something and then expecting something in return. But it was literally just like groups of indigenous people, and it was probably just like one or two groups where they would just offer you a present, and then
Yeah.
you were expected to give something back. And if you didn't have anything to give back, they would be like, well, okay, so I need my necklace back or
Oh,
whatever.
God, yeah.
But then there were whole communities that were built around the idea of the barter system, where it's
And-
like,
but-
I give you this thing and then you give me
Well, I
something, and
also
then I
think
guess
about
they
this,
wanted
too.
to standardize it.
Right.
Well,
And
it goes back
grain
to
comes.
it goes back to the hierarchy, and like, you know, scarcity and those types of things kind of come into play as you have communities become societies, and societies become larger. But
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, I don't want to say patronage, because patronage is still kind of hierarchical, but in my mind, you know, there is all of these things that are essential to life, right? Including entertainment. So what does it mean to essentially, if you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're a teacher, you're a dancer, you contribute something to society's wholeness. Thusly, society will just simply make sure that you're taken care of, i.e.,
Right.
you don't pay for housing. You know, food stores and food sources
Yeah.
are just something
Right.
that are just readily available. And the literal trade is like whatever you offer. Everybody does
Yep.
something of like note
Yeah.
and value that contributes to everybody's like communal base, whatever. But again, I feel like, going back to what Brian was saying, which I totally agree with, it's like in our DNA, there's something that says, well, wait a minute, I just did this for you. I need something. And
Yeah.
when we talk about value and worth and how arbitrary that term is, everybody individually has a different value and worth for themselves and what they do.
But look at it like this. Look at how different perspectives and societies and cultures are across the world, right?
Yeah.
Like people.
I mean,
in-
even the country, even the state.
Right, people in
Mhm.
America have like a certain value system, and that gets perpetuated and encouraged because we live in America. People in the Middle East have a certain value and culture, like so. It's like I don't think it's in our DNA. I think it's because we see the world exist in a certain way, and then we adopt the idea that this is the way the world has to work or should work or whatever. I think if people get indoctrinated into a system where like everybody's looking out for everyone else, they'd be more inclined to believe and feel that could work to perpetuate that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would. It's like
It's the
only
classic
reason
nature
why-
and nurture argument. I mean, it's
The
a
only
combination.
reason why
Yeah,
I
that- I
disagree
agree
with
with that.
you
It's
is
a combination.
because there's so many societies all over the world, and the world has been around for so long. There's always something. When one thing is replaced, there's something else, some other hierarchical structure that replaces it.
But I think it's like maybe a thing of like maybe recessive genes and dominant genes, right? I think hierarchies and I think oppression obviously is like violent and forces its way into existence. You know what I'm saying? Where like circumstances or institutions that would be communal based, it's just easy. It's easy for those things to get taken advantage of and then become the other thing. And I think that's where you have to figure out how to like eliminate that compromise, or how to eliminate like that from happening. And people have tried to like checks and balances in the government was supposed to be a way of stopping corruption. Obviously not working. You know what I'm saying? Obviously not working out the way that they thought it would be. But it's like,
yeah, I think the challenge is humans find ways to satiate needs and drives.
But I don't
like that's like I hear you, like all of these things are artificial, right? Like they're all things that we just create. And we have the intelligence to go, you know what, this thing is actually maybe not that good for other people, or maybe it's not the best way to do it. We should just do something else. Or, you know what, we tried this thing, it doesn't work right, we should do something different. Or it doesn't work for this group of people, and I have some relations to people. There are, I think what's the conversation I feel like we're having is like the eternal conversation of nature versus nurture, where it's like there's some percentage kind of levels between things that are like kind of innately what pushes us to kind of create these things, because we continue to create the same thing over and over again. And some of that does have to do with, you know what, we've never seen anything else, so we're just going to keep doing that. But
also like humans mimic. We mimic the things we like see around us. It's like that the experiment with the monkeys. You've probably all heard it, where it's like they one monkey, whenever he like tries to climb up or get out of the cage or whatever, the other monkeys at the bottom get shocked. So then they like whenever he tries to do it, they start like beating him up. But then they introduce new monkeys in it, and like the monkeys adapt that behavior, not even knowing why, not even knowing about the shock, the shocking happening. Like it's like if they see somebody climbing up, they gang up on them and like beat them up, or like
that
you know what I'm
sounds
saying?
like boot camp.
But
that also kind of
like
that also kind of speaks to nature, because
we gotta get him.
To a certain, you've got to think about it this way. If we have an infinite imagination, which some of this conversation is about that, right? It's like we can imagine and create whatever we wish and want. If we can do that, the contradiction of, well, you can make whatever you want, but I'm gonna still keep making the thing that I kind of can only sort of physically grasp. That kind of speaks to it has to be. It can't be one or the other, right? It's got to be.
No, but it's because you're told that this is the way that things.
But
have
don't
to
you
be.
have the ability and the free will and the intelligence to kind of counter that? 'Cause
children
other people-
You
do.
have the ability,
but adults do too.
most
We're all doing it
people-
right
No,
now.
but like-
but we're all doing it right now.
Well, stepping
People-
back from like just DNA and like
Yeah.
who we are and
Yeah.
stuff. I just look at the simple fact that the problem with getting everyone indoctrinated like that is because we aren't born with morals, and so there's always going to be people that want to take power
Yeah.
definitely
all the time, and
without
so,
a shadow of a doubt.
I don't really know if it's ever this, like, I just don't have confidence that we can create a system that's going to be. I don't know if the idea is perfection. I don't know what your ultimate idea is.
Perfection isn't, but
progress is obviously the goal. But it's like we've created so much, but it's like we haven't really evolved in like tens of thousands of years. You know,
Right.
I don't know. I just don't know if that's like true, because I think people have. I think it's just a idea or an understanding of why people adapt certain behaviors. Like, you look at people who are like become survivors, like people who've had a hard life, and they become manipulators. They become people who learn. There's some people who like won't hesitate to take advantage. There's certain people who but like for survival reasons, right? And there's people who like don't hesitate to ask for what they want. It's like something in their life kind of has them developing that kind of like perspective and mind state. And then there's people who are giving. There's people who, like you said, Jesus washes his followers' feet. There's people who have that perspective, and it's like why did that happen?
Yeah. I think that speaks to the complexity of human beings, though, because I think all of us have, kind of to what Ryan's saying in terms of morals. Like we all, I don't think there is. Now we're getting really into some crazy philosophical stuff, but I think that's why we're constantly, not just at this table, but as humans, we're constantly debating these things, because it is so complex. Because on the one hand, you do have this capacity to understand how to love, how to understand, but then you also do have things that are selfish, and you can argue and say, well, yes, that's because somewhere along the line you were taught that. that you naturally didn't think that way, and you were kind of indoctrined to be that way. But then in the same sentence, you can also sit there and say, but you also understand that it's wrong and it shouldn't be done, but you're doing it anyway, and you already had the capacity to imagine something different. And there are some people who actually do resist whatever that programming may be, and grow up and then continue that. So it's sort of like, I think that the challenge is that, yeah, we're not going to get perfection. Everybody's not going to evolve to the same point or to the same level. I think it also is complexity, because I think human beings, this is me going off the road for a second. I really think that the minute we decided to create these mass societies, we fucked up. I really believe that a lot of the
Have you heard of a book called Sapiens?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you read it?
I haven't read it, but I know the premise.
You would like it.
Y'all need to read this book.
Yeah,
that's a lot of what he thinks, that we might have been better off if we never started farming. If we
really?
Just stayed like
Okay.
You know,
Well, yeah, because that goes back to the.
you know.
I don't know if I would go that far.
Because
I mean, I could
because we were dying in our 30s back then. You know,
right.
times, you know?
No, yeah, and I could see. I have to read the book, but
a third of our babies were just dying.
Yeah,
anyway, so,
I think my general premise is that we seem to work well in small groups, and we seem to be able to come up with collective ideas that can work and make sense. And I'm not saying like 5 people, you know what I mean, or 6 people, but this idea that like you can have cities with 25 million people
and everyone
and
agrees on one
everybody's
thing.
good and everybody's taken care of, and there's not a lot of people trying to like take and survive. I think a lot of those things are like part of the problem that drives so many of these things. Because I do believe it is both. I think it, and again, it's kind of like a mixture with levels. It's like there are certain things that we're programmed to do. There's certain things that we have to kind of like do to counteract that programming, things that are learned. But I also think that there are instincts. I don't think humans are just innately good or just innately bad.
I agree.
I think it's a mix of both. So I think that, yes, depending on the stimuli you get, depending on your experiences, depending on where you literally, I mean, I always talk about the DNA lottery all the time. It's like, I know we don't want to use DNA, but like, you know what? If you end up being born in sub-Saharan Africa, or if you are born in a slum in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, your mentality and your ideas are going to be completely different than if you were born white in the United States of America.
Definitely.
Right. So,
but that has a lot to do with like the
need to
and you can
to
still
survive.
find people
But
that
also-
are morally great in the most privileged places, and people that are completely reprehensible.
Because
so
like
it's a very complex thing.
But it all, I mean, it is, but I also think it's like not at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Because like it's all back down to like the love that you're shown as a child. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you are given an accurate kind of like a well of affection, and also like shown that like other people deserve that same thing, those usually are the people who grow to be like great human beings, you know. But it's like if you're born in a slum in in Brazil or some shit like that, and you don't feel like loved and protected, then you've learned that you have to love and protect yourself.
Well,
you know,
speaking to his complexity idea, I mean, like Katie, I think you should speak to your experience. Because Katie's one of the most beautiful she is the most beautiful human being I've ever met in my life.
Good answer. Good answer.
And you know, though you come from America, you do not come from a happy childhood. You know.
Not really.
So it is really complicated.
But I don't mean the child has to be happy, but like somewhere in your
but felt loved and cared for.
Right. Somewhere in there, like you felt like loved, and then you also felt comfortable enough to love other people. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So do you feel, if I'm understanding you right, are you saying you feel that the answer is if we can create an environment where every human being basically has a high level of love and care.
And your specific definition of love?
No, not even my specific.
Well, I'm just saying, like.
So put it to you like this: let's imagine a world, hypothetically, idealistically, where you treat every single person you interact with like they're the most important person on the planet.
And you feel that's natural human beings. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Just rock with me for a second.
Okay.
Let's imagine that. Like you, every time you talk to a human being, every time you like interact with anyone, you treat them like they're the most important person in the world, right?
Okay.
What kind of a world does that feel like? That'd be like a lot of energy spent, right? You would be like, damn, that would get exhausting very quick.
Also,
right?
also could be boring.
It could be
possibly.
Be boring.
But imagine this.
I'm kinda down for that boredom,
Everyone
though.
has.
I wanna
a
find out what that
different
boredom
type
is
of-
like.
But see, but the part of that most people overlook, the part of that most people kind of like forget is like, if we're in a world where everyone like acts that way, every single person that interacts with you is treating you like you are the most important person in the world. You're existing in a world where everyone's looking out for you. Everyone's trying to take care of you. Everyone's making sure you've eaten. Everyone's making sure that you're sheltered. Like if you exist in a world like that, what power do you need to accumulate?
I would absolutely
like what leverage do you
But are
need?
you saying that you think that is actually like for people? Because I mean, I right now I'm like thinking about like mental illness and like all these things that affect us on a daily basis and keep us from being.
Yeah,
or getting pissed because someone stepped on my shoe. I just don't think what you're saying is like.
I mean,
feasible,
obviously,
you know?
it's the extreme idealistic scale.
You know, everyone has their reasons for doing different things, and in this next poem from David Younger, the character has a reason for selling drugs, so he's a drug dealer.
That was great.
Trying.
Just is rooted in our poetry. Yeah. So this particular poem is about a friend of mine. He's a drug dealer, and I once was a drug dealer, but it never worked out for me. But he is still a drug dealer. So I asked him, why is he still a drug dealer? And he said to me, well, this is why I can't stop, because this is all I know. It's called my 9 to 5, because that's what the drug dealing game is all about. It's like a 9 to 5. Me never have no choice but to sell drugs. The only thing my father dead left give me is a gun. A pair of brown suede Clarks is like my sword from my barn. Work a 9 to 5 and pay rent. Retire at 65 and then you're dead. After 9 to 5, money can't buy Benz. And society said, if you don't have a big house, a red bottom shoes, you are not alive. Plus an iPhone, some expensive cologne, and a Kim Kardashian by my side. Box down Kanye West and run him aside. So when I sell my drugs, it's because I want to live my life according to what I see on TV. You get the point? $40 or 40 hours a week for $15 an hour. In a people restaurant, a pot me and plate me a scour. Time cool, I'm a handful of blister. Good morning, miss, good afternoon, mister. This type of money cannot pay for my daughter daycare fees. Now you know why I sell a key. So I can have my own house key and a button start Mercedes AMG. Me never have no choice but to sell drugs. My father dead from me young, and the only thing him left give me is a pair of old brown Clarks and a gun. Honestly, where can I buy a house with a $15 hour job? I am crazy for selling weed. Seriously, though, are you mad? I can go to jail, that's my risk. But more people die from job-related stress. I know because I Googled this. And when your company goes bankrupt, your 401k that you banked up has now been washed away like Alicia Keys' makeup. And the government cut back on the social security check them. And you got fired from your job 6 months before your retirement. These are the reasons why I prefer to sell the liquor weed from the basement. And drink 2 champagne in one of them big dance. Then I go on my ass bed.
All right, so that was David Younger with Drug Dealer, or a story about a drug dealer. And we've been chatting here. It's been a riveting talk. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and everyone for being on the panel. And I just want to go around the circle and kind of get your final thoughts. Anything that you've been itching to say that you didn't get to say, or any final thoughts you have about being on the panel. Katie, would you like to start?
I think just listening to you guys in the last round there, I don't know, what round are we on? I'm thinking of them as like round 5 or whatever. I think just the thing that's resonating with me right now is like how valuable it is to be able to sit down at a table and be critical with one another and like think about things really in depth. This conversation has felt very quick, even though we've been here for a really long time. And it's just like listening to each other, and it's really enjoyable to see people challenge one another, but in like a very positive way, which I felt this conversation has been. And so that's really what's resonating with me right now. I don't know if there's...
No,
I don't know.
I think it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I mean, very similarly. Like, this is one of my favorite things to do. In Jewish culture, I think it's Yiddish. They call it like chavruta. It's like, kind of it's supposed to be about, the exchange of ideas about the Torah, but like I love not like debate, but like just talking about shit.
Dialogue.
Dialogue. I love it. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Two things really quick. One, this conversation remind me how complex and how varied all of the things that we're trying to kind of like deal with are. And then kind of to your point, Brian, and obviously echoing what Katie was saying as well, but just one of the reasons why I got off the internet was because of this, is because I love having conversations about really big ideas, but in a way that's not either like condescending or yelling and screaming or even more importantly just like with no actual thought behind it. So like I always appreciate doing the podcast every month because it's one of the rare opportunities aside from you and I sitting at home with Solomon and just having conversations like this. But like this is I think to kind of get to Baxter's world that he was talking about, I think if this happened more, we'd actually be getting to that.
Facts.
Yeah.
I want to just jump off of topic and be like, in lieu of recent current events, listen to more female hip-hop artists, support female hip-hop artists. Shout out to Samus, that's my favorite hip-hop artist that happens to be female. Also, Jermaine Dupri, you put the Brat out and she was the first female artist to ever go platinum. What the heck are you talking about? That's it.
Real quick, I jump back one. Also want to say to that point also as well, this conversation is wild old. People are wild late. We've been talking about how women have been represented or are underrepresented. Like, I don't know why everybody's acting like this conversation is brand new. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to real quick, just since we're shouting out people, I know you have writers listening to yours, and that we are open to submissions for writers for Dead Rabbits books. And like, if you've got people, they've got manuscripts, I mean, like this kind of conversation cultivates the kind of listener I'm sure that is tuning in right now. Like we want to project your voice.
Yeah,
how should they reach out to you guys?
Deadrabbitsbooks.com.
Deadrabbitsbooks.com. I read the submissions. I am the screener. Impress me.
Also, when is the monthly event? Like, where is it? What time?
Well, normally it's we're on hiatus right now till September.
Shout out to hiatuses.
Yeah, you got to have mental breaks, man. Yeah. September 15th is our first one, but it's actually a special one because it's gonna be the launch party for Brian's book. It's coming out September 15th.
Where at?
It's at DTUT. You guys will all get an invite.
Okay.
Downtown, uptown.
Yeah.
Downtown, uptown, like the upper.
We're throwing a
east side.
wild party.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
And there's going to be no boring shit. Like, it's going to be... we're not going to sit there and have a Q&A about how I wrote a book like millions of people have done before me. We're just going to drink
parties,
and have fun.
We're going to write our own book.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
We are. We're going to have
prizes to give away.
Exquisite Corpse where everyone like writes
down a story. Oh, that's dope. Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I hate Exquisite Corpse. I want to know what the last
Really?
person wrote.
I love them.
Know the rest of the
All right,
poem.
for you,
we
won't do it.
I do past the poems, but I hate not knowing.
Well, we'll do past the poem and Exquisite Corpse. So
that's how I use
can
I
separate themselves.
I do written freestyle that way. That's how I do written freestyle with my students. Is exquisite raps. It's
really?
it's basically like a freestyle. But anyway, we'll talk about that offline. We'll talk about it offline.
But thank you all for...
What's your final word?
Why are you always forgetting your thoughts?
I was thanking you all. I really...
Also, I want to pull we televised tank top.
I got one.
Wondering,
I got a shirt.
Yes, Dale.
Word.
How can we get this very stylish, beautiful shirt?
The tank tops on sale. They're on our website, the rec.org. No, that's wrong. The reclife.org. And they're available through Teespring if you look for the Rec Life.
I should have worn my shirt today.
Holler. So we have tees and tank tops now. And hoodies. Yeah, I put hoodies up for sale. So once it gets colder, I'll put some hats and stuff back on sale.
And now for Dale's final word.
My final thought is, I really appreciate these talks. Sometimes, I think I bring up some of the same subjects, but it's nice to hear them from a different group of people every time. Sometimes when it's just me, Baxter, and Macau, it's just like us kind of like rehashing, you know, a text message we had or something like that. But it's nice to finally have Katie on the show and to have Brian on the show. Me and Katie have been talking about being on each other's podcast for forever. Yeah. So it's just, I just really appreciate the space, and shout out to Jade for giving us the space.
Yeah, Jade.
Yeah, Jade. Skies Crescent Radio.
Yeah. So I'm in a very thankful space. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Danielle.
Thanks for facilitating this.
Yeah, no problem.
Curating.
So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully you'll listen to the rest of our podcast, and then we'll be back the second Sunday of next month. First Sunday. First Sunday. Today is the second Sunday, but next time will be the first Sunday. Thank y'all for listening.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.